Hi, my name's Abby Kerr. I'm an educator and with an e-learning specialty, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about equity and what makes an equitable classroom. So, to get started, I want to go back in time in my life and share with you a story about when I learned about education and equity. When I was 26, I was living in Toronto, Canada, doing a postgraduate certificate program on international development, and I really wanted to work for an international nonprofit. So, to juxtapose my Canadian fast paced city lifestyle in Toronto, I accepted a position in Mbeya, Tanzania, which is in rural Tanzania, and moved across the globe to this completely different place and decided to live in Africa for a while. The organization I worked for, called the Olive Branch for Children, is a grassroots Canadian organization that has a couple different projects going on, but most of the problems deal and constituents have been affected by the HIV and AIDS crisis that has ravaged sub Saharan Africa. I was hired on at the Olive Branch for Children to implement their microloaning and savings program. I was really into economic development in school and wanted to test out some of the theories and ideas that I had learned about. So, the organization, like I said before, worked with people who were affected by HIV and AIDS. Many of the constituents had gotten better after getting access to healthcare through the health programs the organization provided, and then also needed a way to secure their financial future and their family's financial future. Through this, I created different groups in these rural communities based on their community and age and sex and education level. My groups were kind of a mixed bag of people, but usually they consisted of women who had the burden of a lot of children to care for and also needed to find work. Most of their background was in farming and maybe had a level of a sixth grade education. So, the basic premise that I came up with for this microloaning and savings program was that the organization would foot the loan for for a business that the group united together would create a business plan for. We do a little market research, which I did a lot of the groundwork for beforehand, and talked about what would be good in their communities and how they could make money. So, as I started through this journey, I realized there was a lot of like gun shy things. Most people wanted to do a farming project or a fishery, something like that. I kind of pushed them a little bit to their limit on some things. I found in one community we were just having a really hard time figuring out a business plan that would work. They were kind of the farthest out, but a giant hub for Maasai and Sakuma communities who were even further out. There was electricity that came and went in this village, but what I really thought would be helpful if they could make a solar panel cell phone charging station. Of course, they really balked at the idea of this technology and were worried about being able to upkeep it and the switches and the technical side of things. Um, but I eventually convinced them when I did a quick showing of how much money they can make compared to doing a farming project. So I found a guy in Mbeya, Tanzania named Boniface who worked at a storefront in one of the bus stations. I just happenstance to walk in there, didn't really expect anything from it, but found this really amazing mechanical engineering mind. He had just graduated Form 4, which is equivalent to high school, and was working in his friend's grandfather, our uncle's shop, and we just hit it off. He had a battery already that we could use and had all the supplies and parts, and said that he would meet up with me next week to go into these villages. I was much obliged, and he even took off some of the costs because it was a charity project. He was an amazing resource. We worked together, we traveled out to this place, set up the cell phone charging station, taught the women how to use it. It was really a great moment. He was really interested in the process that the women went through to get this loan, and eventually handed me a business plan proposal a couple weeks later at the organization when he came by to pick up his wages. I immediately wanted to help him because I knew how smart he was, and I knew that he had this potential that I didn't see from a lot of other people that I was around. Um, So I talked to the organization about it, and even though I had written the bylaws on the loans, he wasn't affected by HIV and AIDS, and he wasn't in the realm of the constituents that our organization could help. So I had to deny his business plan, which pained me beyond belief. I looked around, tried to find help for him, and realized, the only way I could find organizational help from would be for him to go to a bigger city, which was a kind of impossible task for him and his lifestyle and his family and the amount of money that his family had. So I was always pained by this. The story always haunts me and hurts me, and it makes me think of all of the outliers in education. So I want to talk to you about what my equity pledge is as an educator. My equity pledge is, for the first, is to get to know the learner. I don't think that you can ever design something or create something for learners that you don't know. And sometimes the learners aren't always the ones that say, yes, I want to be in their classroom. You have to get to know the outliers of the learning situation, just like Boniface. Even though I couldn't help him, I I just always think about it, and I always think about those people who are just outside of the box. So I want to know, or I pledge as an educator to always implement learning styles that would be inclusive of those people who are on the edge of being helped by my learning solution or design. The next thing that I want to talk about is gauging the learner. Where are these learners starting from? Not all learners start at the same point, and that's what equity is being everyone having the same beginning. And we don't. We all have different experiences that make ourselves different, and getting to know the learner and engaging how they can learn is the best way for an educator to understand how they can implement a plan even before the plan is implemented. My next pledge to equity is going to be inclusive of learners. I want to make my designs as accessible to all learning abilities and differences. I also want to make sure that my learning designs create community and give the learner a chance to discuss with peers, or even be able to work on things in group projects. I think that the linear path of learning and education that has been set forth in our society isn't particularly the best one, and we need to step outside of our boxes and our comfort zones and provide learning experiences that are earth shattering and give you a new light to education. So, in conclusion, really, to me, learning is not going to be easy, and being an educator will never be an easy thing. But by using things through technology and trying to reach as many learners as possible, I really hope that my uneven path to finding equity is a way that I can help others find their path to equity. So I thank you for bearing with me through this very long story about equity, and I'm really excited that perhaps maybe you've changed your mind on what you think about what equitable learning is, and you want to reach people like Boniface. So thank you for your time.